Good evening, everybody. June 20th, Tuesday. I'm Michael Smith, and I want to go into a little bit of my past. So, I did a whole video, but then as I walked away, the sunset was just too much. I couldn't not take it, so I had to do it at this point. Figured it'd be better anyway for my ability to just go off the fly with what I want to talk about better than the way I kind of let it, and plus I wasn't happy with the ending. So, let's do it. I'm Michael Smith, born in Phoenix, raised in Mesa, Arizona. That's in the United States. If you're not from the United States, who knows, right? But I was a single child from all the way up to 12 years old. And then my sister came along. And my mom passed away when I was 18. My dad passed away when I was 21. I then took her in and started a whole life with her. At the time, it was me and my girlfriend, so now wife. And we made it work, but it was quite the challenge at the time because it was quite a serious responsibility to have to take in. So before all that came into play, I mean, that's kind of where my responsibility self came in at, and that's half where all the signs started coming. So it was kind of when I started proving myself. And that is one thing I have yet to mention to you guys that I've been really saving and meaning, and I really wanted it to be meaningful, and I didn't even get to say it in the other video. I just thought about it in this moment. But when you do self-improvement, when you work on yourself, no matter what that may be, how little it may be, how it could be so insignificant in your mind potentially, in the conscious mind, but because you take that act of being self-disciplined and doing and acting out this discipline that you're portraying or acting out and following through with, I like to call it higher self, but it's not the new age higher self. It's a form of you, because the only way that it's easiest to think about is that if it's you were a form of the single source, because we all pulled from that one source. And now if you want to think about it scientifically, we are all essentially stardust. We are emissions from the star that burn up through our solar system onto this planet, which come through our ozone layer, land on this earth. The carbon molecules, along with all the other hydrogen and everything else, oxygen, come together, nitrogen, potassium, etc. Let's keep on going, but it creates life. And so essentially we are from this single source. Now, if you think about it in a metaphorical sense, you are that creator. That creator is you. And one example that I love that I heard one time is William Shakespeare Hamlet and is Hamlet William Shakespeare. In essence, they are both one of the same, but neither are, in a sense, familiar with that sense, because one is a character, one is the creator of that character. So if you want to think, theologically this way, understand that you are part of that single source. So that's what I like to feel, is that this source, the single source that we are, is actually manipulating things in our timeline. Now, for all we know, it doesn't have the same idea of time. It can pop in and out whenever it likes. It sees our whole timeline on a display, and it can pick and poke and prod things into nudges of placements and make synchronicities happen into your life, which makes it seem so miraculous and so impossible. But all through the simple fact of our version of time is different than what may not even truly exist. This entity, source, creator, however you want to consider it, has the ability to pop in and out, and it only has your best interests at heart, as well as every living thing in this world. You, me, the animals, the plants, the earth. Because if you think about it, all our signs, all our brick, all our building equipment is made from the ground, the dirt. It's just compacted, it's mixed, it's organized in a manner that creates this thing that we now call, a brick or cement or asphalt, and in reality, it's just a concoction of earth materials. So nothing is never not living. It's just transversed and graduated upon. And that's every day of our lives. That's why I believe Freemasonry does 33 degrees, because when you reach the 33rd degree, it said that you go into this, play area, watch a play of a whole drama of all the degrees being enacted out. And it's all done up in costume and acting roles. And I mean, it's a legit show in this theater hall. And all the 33rd degree honoraries are brought in, invited in, they sit with other high degree Masons, essentially, supposedly. I mean, this is what you see on or hear online. But I believe they do it that way is because not only does the 33 degrees represent the 33 vertebrae in your spine and the ascension process through the quote unquote Kundalini energy, which is your Ida and Ida and Pingala. Dang, on the fly. It's the two central nervous systems that come up to your cerebral cortex, and those essentially emit an oil, and this is the Christos that they talk about. Like a lot of our mythology, theology comes from physiology, anatomy, and the tales you're hearing are, I mean, when we're talking about the Kundalini energy and it's the serpents wrapping themselves up the tree is your spine. The spine is, the serpents are these Idas and Pingala. I'm pretty sure that's what it is the Pingala. So these two, which is also the symbol of the Caduceus, that you see the staff with the serpents and the winged disc up top. Well, that winged disc is symbolic of your pineal and pituitary system, like those double hormones that exist in that circular disc. And the wings are said to be the eye cranial cavities. So when looking upon your skull, I guess from the top, bird's eye view, I'm assuming, there's a view of angle that you can see it where you actually see the cranial skull wings, and the disc is just representing the importance of the central area of the brain, in my opinion. Now, there's a lot of other theories and a lot of ideas about what it is, but again, a lot of my information that I confirm, I've gotten because I've heard so much of other information out there, and then I regurgitate it after I'm hearing enough. And it's almost like myself knows and that's what I run with. Because one fact I've had to learn through this journey is if you don't believe what you're in, it's not going to happen no matter what. And this belief could be it could be your higher power, it could be in spirits, it could be in angels, it could be in devils, it could be in demons, it could be in ghosts. If your belief isn't there, it's not going to come to you. Why? Because it's mental clay energy. Like this air we feel is air. It's moldable. You can create with this thought process. And that's another reason I feel like people who are experiencing hauntings, I mean, usually it's the ones who are more on the frightful side, or they're more skeptic, or they hang in the shadows a little bit more, and they think on the deeper end, and they believe in the aliens, and they believe in everything else out there, and all the noises and everything else. Like, it's almost like you're creating a form of telekinesis, in my opinion. But if we want to get really deep out there, the whole thing I think is happening is we can reach a state within ourselves that is almost like a bridge to the dreamer, which is our creator. And when I say creator, it's this invisible force around us that creates and manipulates everything around you. So it's not an individual being. It's kind of all the above. And you have the ability to willpower out what you want into the world. So by doing this and focusing, because without even realizing it, when you're afraid of a ghost, when you're afraid of anything, what are you doing in your head most of the time? You're repeating it over and over and over. You're like, oh, is it this? Is this a ghost? Or was that a sound? Was this happening? I mean, your mind is constantly going over this topic in your head. And so what happens? It manifests. It comes about. And it usually takes, if you pay attention, like 24, 48, 72 hours, you'll start to see aftermath of intentional manifestations you're attempting. Now, it could be in the magic ritual form. It could be in just affirmations. It could be in mantras. It could be a mantra is a repeated phrase that you say. Like, one of my repeated phrases that I say is when I have a thinking error, and this was something I credit to being locked up. One of my counseling sessions, I learned thinking errors. It regards canceling out that thinking error when it happens. So if I'm judging somebody, if I'm critiquing somebody, if I'm talking down to somebody or angry towards somebody, I will say out loud, cancel. And this is a David Silva method that comes from, it's a memory program, and I think it's just called the Silva method. And he talks about doing that. So once I tried it, it worked. It definitely makes you rethink your processing, I guess, because it comes in the form of layers. Like, you'll first notice that you speak it out loud, then it's like, oh wait, I shouldn't have said that. So then when you graduate past that point, 3 to 5 days, sometimes longer depending on your ability, it'll then go into where it's in your head and you recognize that it's there, and it was almost about to come out, but you were able to stop it like in your head. And then there's the point when you finally reach the third level where you finally just don't have it no more whatsoever come about. And that's been kind of my experience. Is anytime I want to change one of my belief systems, because that's just it, is that you're programmed to believe everything that surrounds you. You've had no choice in the matter for the most part. And even now, because we're pretty much in a brainless state, because that's what they wanted, from the fluoride in the water to the mercury and the vaccinations to the aluminum, bromium, strontium, and the chemtrails that's leaking down to your soil into the water, which then being ingested through the air, through the liquids, through the foods. I mean, this is crazy. Everything they're ingesting into the atmosphere or the environment is metallic. Why do they use metallic? Because those metallic particles, this system, this circular system in your head that I just described, the Ida and Pingala, where they lead up to the pituitary and the pineal. The pituitary is the masculine, it's your hormone producers. Where HGH comes from is where all, you're getting these injections for your hormones to like boost I don't know if testosterone, it's more for women I know they use, but boosting your estrogen levels, because it's a natural, like almost like a stem cell. It's like a blank hormone that gets created in whatever area it gets put to, it gets created for that purpose. So it's kind of like a blank slate until it reaches this designated area, and then it becomes this meaningful purpose and does what it's supposed to do. Same as a stem cell. The only issue with stem cells is that they're essentially baby fetuses that are processed. So I get it. That's a side tangent, but anyway, this whole concept is a bunch of craziness that I want to bring into a lot of the videos, and I even intended this video to be about my past, and I guess it gives me something to talk about tomorrow. Something in me didn't want to talk about it, evidently, so here we are. We're going to leave it with that. Oh, man. Can you see? No, you can't. Maybe. Let's see. Oh. I didn't mean to have an orgasm. Sorry, guys. I love sunsets. I love nature. You definitely vibe back with nature when you get out in it, and if you are aware of it. Like, that's the key. Be aware. Know your beliefs are controlling and manipulating everything around you. And the ironic part is you never had part or control in your beliefs. Like from a young age, you've been programmed your religion, you've been programmed how to act, how to be at the table, how to be mannerisms. And if you had that luxury of being taught those things, then you got it and you stuck with you. And now you're in a groove of never wanting to change, and you're just happy in the state you're in. That's the story that all these greats are talking about, even down to Jesus. I mean, essentially, you were trying to act out this role of this Jesus figure. You're trying to reach that level. It doesn't mean that he's a third party figure you have to acknowledge and worship, and if there truly is a he, because that's a whole other topic, and it just comes back down to information. I mean, just really quick, Jesus, it's a Latin name. His name was Yeshua. Because there was no pronunciation for the letter Y, they created the I want to say it was like H first, and then it went from H to J because of the Spanish translation. So I mean, there was all these different versions of Jesus, and then with the S, there was no S, so they had to change it to the Zeus or the Z from Zeus. So then the Zeus stayed, and then it translated to Jesus, and that's kind of the frustration, is that a lot of these things, like, we're just taught to just go ahead and accept it. Just go ahead and don't question anything. And I had too many questions. I had way too many questions. And that's why I'm here. We'll talk about more, I guess, history related tomorrow as far as my history goes. I had more in mind, but that's good for now. That was something. You guys have a good rest of the night. Good enough.